Hey besties, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to share with you my November setup in my reading journal, as well as some updates to my annual spreads and even an extra page in my new 2025 reading journal. There are quite a few new faces on this channel, so I just wanted to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Amanda and I love making journal videos. This video is going to kind of be more of a general setup as I do monthly updates as I read along throughout the year. My style is very much scrapbooking. I love to use images of the book covers and pictures that remind me of the story in my journals, mixed with layers of washi tape, papers, things like that. So I'm going to start by cutting everything out so we can get started. The first spread we're working on today is my November cover page. This page has looked very different this year as I have been experimenting with a lot of different styles. Some months I use pictures from my Instagram that I want to save. Sometimes I go more thematic. This month I'm kind of doing a blend of both by using these letter stickers to create my header for my calendar page. And of course, I realized I didn't have two of the letters I needed to spell out November. So we're making do with a letter C to make an E, and I'll just add in a little gold line. And then to make an R, I'm going to cut this U into the shape of an R. Hey, it works. I'm fine with it, but we didn't have enough space, so we've got to pivot and restart. This is what I really love about journaling is there's no right or wrong way to do it, and if you mess up, you can just kind of start over. It's December now that I'm filming this video and creating these spreads, so I thought I would pull in this lovely plaid backdrop for the letters. I'm a big fan of plaid, and I thought the blues and green coloring of this one was a little less Christmas and more just seasonal, cozy November vibes. So I loved it. It came in a paper pack with lots of kind of foresty elements, which you'll see a little later on in the spread. But I thought it would be perfect for the header. For the backdrop, I'm just choosing a kind of gridded style paper, which I'll cut down and put my calendar in. Now, this is something I'm definitely shifting in 2025. I hate drawing out calendars, so I'm going to do a different system where instead of marking every single day I've read, I'm just going to mark the dates where I finished a book, which now means setting up yet another spread in my 2025 reading journal. So you guys get a little bonus page. We're going to set it up together, but we're going to take these little calendars and move into my other journal. So if you haven't already seen the video, this is my 2025 reading journal setup. I went with a pirate theme after some of my favorite book characters, and I'm in love with how it turned out. I am so proud of it. It's my favorite journal that I've ever made. So thank you guys so much for all the love that you gave that video and all the new faces that have subscribed from that video. It's so good to have you here, and I'm excited for where this journal takes me this year. 2024 was the first time I started journaling a monthly spread and kind of made spreads for all the books that I read. And I've really felt like my journaling style kind of took off this year. I figured out what I really enjoy doing and what I don't enjoy doing. So I'm really excited to see kind of where this journal leads me in 2025. But one of the things that I regretted in my setup was that I didn't lean into the gem sage element of the fable story. So I really wanted to include that for her. So I wanted to make another spread. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And now that I have this kind of calendar idea, I thought it would be perfect. As I did with all of the spreads in this reading journal, I am tearing off the farthest edge of the page and I'm distressing it with this little stamp kit. This, I definitely went overboard to make a sailor pun in distressing all the edges of this journal, but I just think it makes it look so thematic and I loved how it turned out. And I think I've decided to continue this throughout the rest of my journal for this year. I'm also so excited because my gems that I ordered off Etsy finally arrived and I can actually use them in my spread. So I found these awesome stickers. I'll link the shop below. but these just reminded me of the little gems that Fable is finding in the ocean. So it'll be a good kind of backdrop to this spread. And because the majority of this page is going to be, covered by these little calendar printables, um, I'm just putting the gems in the farthest corners to bring a little pop of color to the information side of things, but still give me plenty of space to lay out the monthly calendars. I also decided that the calendars I had pre-cut are too big, so I'm trimming those down to give myself a little bit more space and to see the background, which is just washi tape stuck down on the paper. I'm also distressing the edges here so that the white paper pops a little bit more against that really light sea foamy green, which I think was the right choice. It took forever though. Then I'm just positioning these so that I can fit all 12 calendars for the year. And in between, I'm going to lay in some mermaidy photos that I found on Pinterest, which I love because it pulls in both the Fable theme with the Daughter of the Pirate King theme. As I'm editing this, I realized I never added in a title for this page, but in the rest of my journal, I put a fun kind of piratey spin on your typical reading journal titles, and I wanted to do that for this page as well, but the best I could come up with was hidden gems. I don't know that that really applies to when I'm finishing a book, but it's the best I've got. So I would love your contributions. I know there's so many creative minds out there with better ideas than me. So if you feel like you know what you want to title my reading spread here, please leave it in the comments. I would love to add you into my journal. But now that this page is all set up, let's jump back into my 2024 reading journal and update the rest of my November spreads. November was a pretty busy month for me, so when I look back and see that I read 8 books in November, I'm like, what? What did I read? I had to really kind of look at my Goodreads and go back to all of my digital tracking to remember, but I read a lot of good books in November, but I was also focused on a lot of other things like work and Thanksgiving. We had family staying with us, and I was also setting up my reading journal. So there was a lot of extra things kind of going on in the month of November. I'm splitting the spread between one side being my calendar where I'm tracking my reading, and the opposite side is highlighting my social media activity. So YouTube and Instagram. Now, Instagram, I actually share with my best friend. We have a bookstagram called Bookish Besties, and we just post what we're reading. I post little video updates here and then. And we were definitely more active in 2023, but since then she started nursing school. So Instagram has kind of taken a backseat in priorities, as it should. There's just other things that we have been focusing on, me with my YouTube and her with schooling. So we haven't posted much on our Bookstagram in a couple months, so this little grid here is our feed for October and November. So I wanted to include it because it does take time to set up these images, and I wanted to catalog kind of what my Instagram looked like in 2024. Behind the grid, I'm using that kind of as a little flap where I can paste in the videos that I posted in November to remember those as well. I think in 2025, I'm going to create some type of social media journal just to track everything like statistics and boring things like that that don't need to be shared with everybody on the internet. But for now, I like having a place to showcase kind of what I was working on that month. So in November, I posted 2 videos, a December readathon roundup, and then my October reading journal spreads. So I'll go back in here and kind of put in some more personal information about my experiences making those videos and cover that up by the Instagram grid. To fill in the blank areas of the spread, I am pulling out this washi tape roll from the washi tape shop, and I chose this girl sitting at her desk journaling since that's what I spent most of my November doing, and then just filling in the borders with a couple extra stickers that coordinated. I love how all the colors blend together and it just fit the mood I had for this fall spread. I also knew I had to include this little text sticker which says, "A stationery shop is my happy place where journaling supplies and inspiration meet." And I'm finally just finishing off the page with a couple more stickers, washi tape, and filling in the dates that I read each of the books over the month of November. Jumping into my book reviews, starting with Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This, like many series, are on my shelves for a long time, and before the end of the year, I wanted to try some of them out so that I could see if it was even my taste and decide if I wanted to keep the series on my TBR or unhaul them. So we started off real strong with one of my favorite books of the month. In this story, we follow Evangeline, who is desperate to prevent the love of her life from marrying the wrong person. So she makes a deal with a fate to kind of control that situation, and of course it backfires. So the rest of the story is kind of the consequences of her making that decision and that deal with Jax and just how that plays out. I'm excited to continue the rest of the series. I think it will have lots of twists and turns, and I love the fairy tale backdrop that the setting is set in. It was very reminiscent of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Once Upon a Broken Heart is definitely more whimsical and grounded in, classic fairy tales. So you have elements of turning someone to stone or, true love's first kiss, that kind of stuff. So a little bit more whimsical and joyful and put into that young adult lens, but I truly think that this series has potential to be one of my favorite series that I have on my shelf. I've just been completely captivated by this world and I'm excited to continue reading into it even more. The next series I tried was The Grimrose Girls by Laura Pohl. This was recommended to me by my cousin because she knows I love a good fairy tale. And while I really enjoy the YA genre, every once in a while I try a book that just feels a little bit too young. So, unfortunately, this book was an example of that. I did enjoy that the author took a lot of classic fairy tales and spun the really dark kind of elements of the original fairy tales and turned it into a murder mystery. I thought the concept was there, but the story would jump from, "Oh my gosh, my best friend was murdered," to, "Wow, that guy's really cute and I hope he asks me out on a date to the ball." And I just didn't understand. Like, it felt like there was two different moods going on in the book, and I didn't, it made it hard to follow and get into for me. But I can see why a younger reader would really enjoy this book. So for this duology, I decided to DNF it at this point and not continue on to the second book and just donate these books to my local library so someone else could enjoy them. Another book I read this month was The Moonflowers by Abigail Rose Marie. And this was a advanced reader's copy that I read through NetGalley. And I was drawn in by the beautiful floral cover. Like, it's stunning. It's beautiful. And the synopsis really grabbed me in. So I thought I would give it a shot and give it a review. In this story, we follow Tig, who is an artist, and she's commissioned to paint a portrait for a notable person in this town. And this person also happens to be her grandfather, whom she never knew, she didn't know anything about. And so before she can paint this portrait of him, she wants to kind of understand who he was. And who better to tell her than the person who killed him? Like I said, the plot drew me in. I really enjoyed the writing style. However, I did feel like the author had a very specific agenda in this book, and that tainted it a little bit for me. But overall, I thought it was a really solid mystery. Up next, I'm making a spread for one of my favorite books of the month, which is The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I cannot believe that this is a debut novel. It was fantastic, and I am stoked because there's another book that's coming out in 2025. It's an unrelated story, but I'm just excited to read more from this author. In the Book of Doors, we're following our main character, Cassie, after she receives a book from a patron at the bookstore she works at after he dies. And she finds out that this book is very, very special and basically allows her to jump from door to door. So, in her innocence, she's just ready to use the book to travel to Europe, but then comes to realize that this magic has a lot more potential to do harm than just, her innocent travels. But through that, she meets a new cast of characters, all with different types of magical books, and she's kind of thrown into this world, the secret world of magical books, which is just a fun place to be as a reader. I don't know what you call the genre of traveling through books, but it's one of my favorites, and it reminded me of a lot of really great stories that I've read in the past, like The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and The Book Jumper by Mathilde Glasser, and The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It fits right in with those incredible stories, and it was just a joy to read. On the right, I'm creating a spread for All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. This book was so good, but I don't even know how to summarize it for you without spoiling too much. So I had to read the blurb on the book so I wouldn't, give anything away. Essentially, there's this town in Missouri where girls have been going missing. And an unlikely hero, which is this young boy named Patch who has an eye patch, saves one of the local girls and in turn is kidnapped in her place. He meets someone who kind of gives him hope, and this person tells him to paint her, but how can he paint her if he's never seen her? So that's kind of the inspiration behind the spread that I've done here. This story was really interesting because it follows two of our main characters as they both are heavily impacted by this event, and yet they choose two very different paths to take. So the story follows them over the next 30 years as they pursue this kind of common goal, but differently. And it was just a very unique story. I highly recommend. We read it for book club and we all thoroughly enjoyed it. I will say it is very long and kind of boring at parts, but overall well worth it. And the ending you will not be able to put down. Two other series I gave a try this month were Divergent and Renegades. I think that 2011 Amanda would have been obsessed with Divergent, but alas, I was in college at the time and wasn't reading a whole lot other than what I was studying in school. Reading it now is a little different because obviously I'm older and maybe a little bit more critical of books, so it didn't captivate me in the same way that like Twilight or The Hunger Games did. But I still really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to continue the rest of the series. If you are like me and haven't read this book, we follow our main character who is 16 and she has to choose kind of the direction for her life. Her world is kind of split into these 5 different factions, they call them, which each pursue a different virtue. So it's a coming of age story with a dystopian spin on things, and it was exciting and nostalgic, and I really enjoyed it. Next, I read Renegades by Marissa Meyer, which is about teenage superheroes, one of which wants vengeance and one wants justice, and just how their stories overlap. It was fun. It was definitely for younger audience, but I just really enjoy Marissa Meyer's writing. So I think I'm going to continue with the series for now and see how the second book goes. And the last spread of the month is for Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think most of us fell in love with this world through the film adaptations, but I had always wanted to read this as well. So the Magical Readathon this month's prompt was to read a high fantasy, so I knew that this is the one that I wanted to start with. In comparing the book to the movie moves forward very quickly, whereas the book takes its time. We are walking for a long time. We are preparing for our journey for a long time. There are conversations and songs and stories and friendships made in the time that in the movie it takes like 2 seconds for Frodo to begin his journey, and in the book it's very slow. But I didn't mind because I was very immersed by Tolkien's writing and just loved the world that he set up. So it kind of felt like I was having conversations with all of the characters along the way, and it was stunning. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, speaking of the Magical Readathon, I need to update some of my annual spreads. And I know I don't do this in every monthly wrap up, but I want to throw it in here now and again. So, this is my setup for the Magical Readathon for the whole year. This is my adventure in Aldea, in which every month there is a new prompt for a book to read, and you kind of take your character through this journey of Aldea. Like I said, this month's prompt was to read a high fantasy novel, in which I chose Lord of the Rings. So I need to fill that in for my November space here in my journal. And a lot of you have commented on this little banner that I made on Canva, and I wanted to give that to you guys as a little freebie in case you wanted to use it in your journal. It does take a lot of time cutting out all those banners, but it could be used for a lot of different types of spreads. So, hey, I made it. If you want to use it, go for it. I hope you enjoy and can put it to good use. I'm also including the movie poster and the book cover for Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring in my page to screen spread. Just to remember that I did enjoy both of those book and adaptation this year, as well as pasting in Moonflowers, since that was another advanced reader's copy that I read this year. Then we jump into our Reese Witherspoon book club. This is something that I was very into in previous years, and this year, because of getting into readathons, I've kind of abandoned this challenge. So I'm kind of just finishing off the rest of this spread so I can be done. But this is one of the challenges that I won't be taking with me into 2025. These spreads are for my book clubs, and I'm just pasting in the cover for the books that we chose in both of those clubs. My book club recently went on a book retreat, so we read 2 additional books than we were planning on this year. So I've just pasted in those covers next to a photo of us on our retreat, which was so much fun. And with that, that's the kind of the wrap up for my annual spreads. So now let's get into the final flip. I hope you guys enjoyed this November reading wrap up. If you've made it this far, leave a comment with your favorite book to movie adaptation. think that would be fun to see everyone's favorites. And I hope you guys have an awesome end of the year of reading. Be sure to check back soon for my general journaling content for 2025, as well as some Aurelium updates and book awards, things like that. There's exciting stuff coming to my channel, so be sure you're subscribed, and I will see you in another video real soon. Bye!